Have you ever wondered how a perfectly planned heist can unravel in the most unexpected way? Imagine the dazzling lights of Las Vegas fading into the quiet stillness of the early morning hours, where the city's relentless energy gives way to a calm that feels almost unnatural. It's in this deceptive silence that a team of experts begins to move. A group whose talents span hacking, manipulation, and stealth, all aligned with a single goal: to pull off a casino heist that would rival any Hollywood thriller. You might think that with months of preparation, every detail accounted for, nothing could possibly go wrong. But what if the smallest sound, something as simple and involuntary as a cough, could shatter the illusion of control? Picture the scene. The casino's vibrant floor, usually alive with the clatter of chips and the hum of slot machines, now quiet as the last patrons leave and security systems cycle through their nightly resets. The air inside the casino is thick with anticipation and tension, every shadow and corridor locked down in a way that only those who know the rhythm of the place could appreciate. The team moves with precision. Cameras are manipulated by the hacker working remotely, internal security is compromised, and vaults open silently without triggering a single alarm. It's a flawless execution in the making, a moment where the team feels invincible. Their plan is solid as the reinforced walls surrounding them. But as you watch this ballet of calculated moves and digital wizardry, you might ask yourself, what's the one thing no plan can ever fully prepare for? Human error, the unpredictable element that no amount of hacking or bribery can erase. A shaky breath, a nervous glance, and then a cough. At first, it's barely noticeable, just a small noise in the vast network of surveillance microphones believed to be switched off. Yet, it's enough to catch the attention of a vigilant night shift operator, the kind of person who knows every sound that doesn't belong. What you're about to discover is how this tiny, involuntary noise ignited a chain reaction that would turn a carefully orchestrated heist into a frantic scramble, locking down the entire casino and shattering months of meticulous planning. So, if you've ever been fascinated by the intricate dance between crime and security, or wondered how one tiny mistake can change everything, stay with me. The story that unfolds next will not only surprise you, but also reveal the fragile line between success and failure in the high-stakes world of casino heists. What started as a silent mission in the shadows of Las Vegas soon became a lesson in how even the smallest sound can echo louder than the brightest lights. Let's dive deeper into the moments before the rupture, where control seemed absolute and the silence was about to be broken. As the night thickened, every footstep, every breath, became a calculated risk. The team moved with precision, their shadows melting into the velvet darkness of the casino's underbelly. It was a dance of nerves and timing, where one misstep could shatter years of planning in an instant. But amid the tension, there was something more profound unfolding. A quiet realization that even in the pursuit of something grand, the smallest human moments matter the most. If this story is striking a chord with you, don't hesitate to share what's resonating in your own experience. Maybe it's the thrill of walking on the edge, or the way pressure reveals unexpected truths about who we are. Drop a comment below to tell me what touched you, what made you pause, or even what you'd do differently. Your voice isn't just words on a screen. It's part of a conversation that breathes life into this story and connects all of us who find meaning in these moments. And if you're finding yourself drawn into this journey, liking the video helps more than you might imagine. It's a simple way to say, yes, I want to see where this goes, and it nudges the channel to bring more stories like this to light. Every thumbs up is like a nod of encouragement, a signal that the effort to dig deeper, to tell stories that matter, is worth it. Joining this community by subscribing means you won't miss the next twists and turns, the unexpected insights lurking just around the corner. More than that, it's a way to stay connected with others who, like you, crave stories that challenge and inspire. The energy you bring here shapes what comes next, so if you feel that spark, let's keep it alive together. With that, let's return to the shadows where the silence is about to break, and the fragile balance hangs by a thread. The casino stood like a monolith amidst the flickering neon haze of Las Vegas, its towering facade a deceptive invitation to chance and fortune. Beneath its glittering surface lay a labyrinth of security measures so intricate that even the staff who moved through its corridors daily could scarcely grasp the full extent. Cameras equipped with thermal imaging patrolled every inch, their lenses imperceptibly adjusting to detect the slightest heat signature. An errant hand brushing against a doorframe, a hidden figure lingering beyond the visible spectrum. These devices did not merely record. They analyzed, scanning for patterns that deviated from the expected flow of patrons and employees alike. Microphones, far beyond the capabilities of ordinary surveillance, were strategically embedded within the walls and ceilings, their sensitivity calibrated to capture whispers and the faintest scrape of a shoe. These ultrasonic sentinels fed into a network that parsed every sound, filtering out the ambient noise of slot machines and chatter to isolate anomalies worthy of attention. The ambient hum of the casino was a carefully maintained facade. In reality, a complex symphony of signals was monitored continuously, a digital heartbeat of vigilance. Any irregularity, an unexpected pause in footsteps, a breath held too long, could trigger a cascade of internal alerts. Physical barriers reinforced the technological defenses. Doors were constructed with layers of hardened steel, designed not only to withstand forced entry but to delay it long enough for armed response teams to arrive. Access points required multiple levels of authentication, from biometric scans to encrypted keycards with rotating codes. The vaults, where vast sums of cash and chips were stored, featured triple redundancy. A system of locks, alarms, and independent power supplies ensured that even a power failure would not compromise their integrity. Each vault was essentially a fortress within a fortress, its security protocols layered like the concentric rings of a protective shell. The human element was no less formidable. Security personnel underwent rigorous psychological screening and training, their roles demanding acute observational skills and an ability to interpret subtle behavioral cues. They were experts in detecting the faintest tremor of deception, an eye that flickers too long, a smile that does not reach the eyes, a hesitation in movement. These guards were not merely watchers. They were analysts, constantly piecing together fragments of information to anticipate potential breaches. Their presence was both invisible and omnipresent. At any moment, an unassuming figure might be monitoring the room from a concealed vantage point, blending seamlessly into the crowd. This environment bred a form of tension that was almost tactile. The casino's corridors and gaming floors were spaces where silence was as potent as sound, where the smallest misstep could unravel an intricate web of security. For anyone attempting to navigate these halls with ill intent, every action had to be calculated to a degree that bordered on obsession. The weight of surveillance rendered even the most mundane movements suspect, and the psychological strain of operating under such scrutiny was a crucible that few could endure for long. Within this fortress, time itself seemed to warp. The relentless monitoring imposed a rhythm that was both relentless and unforgiving. Clocks ticked unnoticed, but the cadence of the security systems pulsed with a precision that left no room for error. Even the air appeared charged with an invisible current of anticipation, as if the building itself was alive, sensing the approach of something, or someone, out of place. The interplay of light and shadow inside the casino's walls created pockets of uncertainty, where the gaze of the cameras might falter for a split second, and where the faintest disruption could ripple outward into a storm of alarms and lockdowns. Yet, despite this overwhelming array of defenses, the stories that circulated in hushed tones outside its doors told of attempts, some brazen, others meticulously planned, aimed at breaching this near-impenetrable stronghold. Each tale added layers to the mythos of the casino, painting it as a crucible of human ingenuity pitted against mechanical precision and psychological warfare. The security teams were locked in a silent duel with unseen adversaries, a game where stakes extended far beyond chips and money, touching on the very limits of control and chaos. As the night deepened and the crowd thinned, the fortress did not rest. Its vigilance only sharpened, adapting to the subtle shifts in atmosphere. The cold glow of monitors, the faint click of doors sealing behind a lone figure, the almost imperceptible hum of machinery. These were the threads weaving a tapestry of control that, for now, held firm. But beneath the surface, in the spaces between the algorithms and the steel, a different kind of tension simmered, one that no amount of technology could fully contain. A human element, unpredictable and restless, poised to test the boundaries of this formidable citadel. The room where the team gathered was small, cramped with wires snaking along the walls like veins, punctuated by the soft flicker of screens and the occasional tap of keys. At the center, the hacker sat immersed in a labyrinth of digital codes, fingers dancing across the keyboard with a practiced agility that spoke of countless nights spent navigating firewalls and surveillance networks. His eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the feed streaming in from hidden cameras, each pixel a potential blind spot or vulnerability. Years of hacking into secure government systems and corporate fortresses had honed his instincts. He knew the patterns, the delays, the subtle glitches that betrayed a system's weaknesses. His role was clear: command the digital battlefield, bend the fortress's eyes and ears to their will, and erase their presence before it was even perceived. Nearby, the security insider leaned back, casual but alert, his demeanor a mask that concealed the intricate web of loyalties and betrayals that had placed him here. He was the wild card whose knowledge of internal schedules, guard rotations, and emergency protocols made the difference between a dead end and an open path. His information was the skeleton key to a system built on routine and predictability. Suborned months ago with a mixture of pressure and promise, he carried the weight of every secret corridor, every access code memorized out of necessity, every shift change timed to the minute. The tension beneath his calm was palpable. He was acutely aware that any misstep could unravel the entire operation, and yet the risk was a currency he had long learned to trade in. Opposite them, the safecracker methodically examined the blueprints spread across the table, lines and symbols merging into a map of steel and security. His hands, steady and sure, betrayed no hint of the meticulous calculations running through his mind. Years of experience had sculpted a precise understanding of the mechanics behind every lock: complex tumblers, electromagnetic seals, pressure-sensitive plates, all challenges to be dismantled quietly and without trace. His specialty was not brute force but finesse, the subtle manipulation of steel and circuitry until the vault surrendered its secrets. He knew how to read the tension in the metal, how to exploit the smallest flaw invisible to the untrained eye. The stakes were high. The slightest scratch or sound could trigger alarms that no hacker could silence. The last member of the quartet was the executor, the one designated to handle the physical transfer once the vault was breached. His role was less cerebral but no less critical. Experienced in navigating hostile environments and managing high-pressure extractions, he bore the responsibility of moving the spoils without drawing attention. His movements were economical, rehearsed, and precise, reflecting a familiarity with the rhythms of escape and evasion. He was the bridge between the abstract calculations of the team and the tangible reality of the hall. Trust in his timing and discretion was implicit. Any hesitation or error could spell disaster, turning a successful breach into a chaotic chase through the urban labyrinth. Together, they formed a unit whose synchronization rivaled the most intricate mechanisms, each relying on the other's expertise yet operating with a degree of independence born from necessity. Their communication was sparse but effective, subtleties in tone and gesture conveying entire strategies without a word. There was an unspoken understanding that any misalignment could cascade into failure, that in this delicate dance, precision was survival. The hacker's eyes flicked back to the digital feeds, noting a new security protocol being uploaded. The insider murmured an update about an unscheduled guard patrol. The safecracker recalibrated his tools for a more complex lock than anticipated, while the executor checked his gear one last time, muscles coiled and ready. Outside, the city's heartbeat pulsed in the distance, indifferent to the silent war unfolding within these walls. The lines between observer and participant blurred as the team prepared to navigate the shifting maze of technology and human vigilance. Each second held the potential for revelation or ruin, and the air thickened with the electric charge of anticipation. Here, in the shadowed nexus of wires and steel, strategy met instinct, and the margin between control and chaos was razor-thin. The operation was no longer just a plan. It was a living entity, breathing in the tension of every calculated risk, every measured step toward an uncertain end. For months, the team immersed themselves in a relentless cycle of preparation, each detail scrutinized until the edges blurred between precision and obsession. The simulated environments echoed the cold, fluorescent hum of the casino's back corridors, recreated in abandoned warehouses and rented office spaces. Every inch of the floor plan was etched into their memories, not through cursory glances, but through repeated, methodical walkthroughs that mimicked the ebb and flow of foot traffic during peak hours. They shifted through these rehearsals wearing the exact clothing, shoes, and even accessories planned for the night of the operation. The soles of their boots, custom selected for their near-silent tread, pressed softly against the concrete, eliminating the risk of accidental noise that could betray their presence. The security shifts presented another layer of complexity. Surveillance of the guards became an exercise in psychological analysis as much as observation. Each individual's routine was dissected. The subtle cadence of patrols, the brief moments of distraction, even the idiosyncratic habits that marked their presence. One guard lingered longer near the east entrance. Another had a 5-minute window during his coffee break when his attention wavered. Layering these insights over the structural blueprint of the casino, the team crafted a temporal map, navigating through blind spots and timing their movements to coincide with the lowest probability of detection. Parallel to the physical rehearsals, the technical groundwork advanced under the hands of the team's hacker. Weeks were spent writing and rewriting code designed to infiltrate and manipulate the casino's camera system. The software had to be both subtle and robust, a ghost in the machine that could seamlessly replace live feeds with pre-recorded loops. This digital mimicry was tested exhaustively, each iteration designed to counteract the latest security patches and fail-safes. The hacker worked from a secluded corner, surrounded by an array of monitors flickering with lines of code and live camera feeds from nearby public spaces as a distraction testbed. Achieving synchronization between the fake footage and the real-time environment required adjustments down to the millisecond, ensuring that no anomaly would alert the security room's operators. Meanwhile, the physical maps evolved beyond mere floor plans into intricate guides detailing escape routes and fallback points. The team memorized multiple contingencies, each route plotted to navigate the labyrinthine underbelly of the building and its adjoining structures. Stairwells, ventilation shafts, service tunnels, every passage was evaluated for speed and security. The timing of each leg of the escape was calculated against potential obstacles. Security patrols returning early, unexpected maintenance work, or the ever-present risk of a sudden lockdown triggered by an unrelated incident. The plans incorporated these variables, layering probabilities and contingencies like a vast chessboard where every piece's movement was anticipated. As the days grew shorter and the operation's scheduled moment approached, the team's meetings became tighter, the discussions stripped of anything extraneous. Conversations revolved solely around synchronization, when to move, when to pause, how to communicate silently in a space saturated with surveillance. The use of hand signals, subtle shifts in body language, and prearranged cues replaced spoken words. Even breathing became a shared rhythm, a collective effort to maintain calm under pressure. They rehearsed the timing of every step with military precision. The window between entering the vault area and completing the swap of the feed was narrowed to seconds. The physical act of switching the data source to the manipulated feed was choreographed to the fraction of a second, executed without hesitation or error. The team knew that a single miscalculation could trigger alarms that would echo through the casino's security network instantaneously. Beyond the operational mechanics, the psychological strain was palpable. The pressure of maintaining such an exacting routine bred a quiet tension that settled over the group like a second skin. Each member grappled with the weight of responsibility, acutely aware that the margin for error was infinitesimal. Yet, the preparation itself became a crucible, burnishing nerves and focus until the team moved as one, a silent, precise organism shaped by countless hours of rehearsal and relentless scrutiny. In this crucible, trust was forged not through words but through action, each member's reliability a vital thread in the intricate web of the plan. The team's collective consciousness honed in on the upcoming moment, an impending convergence of timing, technology, and human will. Every element, from the softest footfall to the flicker of a screen, was poised at the edge of execution, waiting for the exact instant when the operation would shift from rehearsal to reality. The moment the hacker's fingers hovered over the keyboard, the atmosphere thickened with a tension that wasn't audible but palpably electric. With a few swift commands, the digital fortress surrounding the casino's security systems began to unravel. The familiar hum of surveillance cameras, steady and unyielding for years, fell into an unnatural silence. Screens froze mid-frame, capturing static images of oblivious security personnel and empty corridors, disguising the invisible breach that was already in motion. Inside the labyrinthine corridors, the security officer turned infiltrator moved with an ease that belied the stakes. He pressed his palm against the biometric scanner. A momentary pulse of data exchanged, and the reinforced doors yielded without a sound. Each lock disengaged like the turning of a key in a well-oiled machine, the echoes swallowed by the thick walls and the stillness that enveloped the building. No alarms blared, no emergency lights flickered. Only the calculated rhythm of footsteps and the soft click of metal against metal. The specialist, whose hands had decades of experience with safes and security mechanisms, approached the heart of the operation. The vault stood there, an imposing monolith of steel and cold calculation, designed to repel even the most determined of intruders. Yet, under his meticulous touch, the complex tumblers and electronic barriers gave way as if anticipating the inevitability of his intrusion. His movements were deliberate, a dance of precision and patience, avoiding the slightest disturbance that could betray their presence. Throughout the entire space, the silence was paradoxical, both suffocating and liberating. The absence of noise was a signal that the system had been effectively neutralized, but it also amplified the smallest details. The faint rustle of fabric against stone, the soft exhale of controlled breathing, the subtle tap of a fingertip against a glass surface. These were the only intimations of life in a place that should have been awake and watchful. The team's coordination was seamless, each member existing in perfect synchrony with the others despite being separated by walls and floors. The hacker's eyes never left the monitors, scanning for any sign of the system recovering or triggering a countermeasure. The infiltrator's gaze darted to every corner, hyper-aware of shadows and silhouettes that could signal an unexpected patrol. The specialist's fingers traced the contours of the locking mechanism, reading the vault's secrets like a map that revealed itself only under intense scrutiny. Outside, the casino continued its masquerade of normalcy. The bright lights, the distant clatter of chips, the murmur of gamblers unaware of the silent drama unfolding beneath their feet, all formed a stark contrast to the calculated stillness inside the vault room. It was a duality of worlds, one of chaos and spectacle, the other of cold strategy and unseen threats. Despite the flawless execution progressing at a molecular level, an undercurrent of unease persisted. It was not born of fear or doubt, but of an acute awareness that every second spent inside the vault increased the risk of discovery. The air seemed to thicken with the weight of possibility. What if a camera rebooted prematurely? What if a guard's routine shifted unexpectedly? The potential for disruption lurked like a shadow waiting to pounce. Yet the team pushed forward, driven by the fragile window of opportunity they had carved. Time stretched and contracted in unpredictable ways. The specialist's work, though methodical, was accelerated by an unspoken urgency. A misstep here could trigger an irreversible cascade of alarms. A hesitation there could mean the difference between success and catastrophe. The tension was not loud but layered, built into every microsecond as the team moved closer to their objective. As the final tumblers clicked into place and the vault door creaked open just enough to reveal the treasures within, the operation reached a pivotal moment. The silence remained intact, an unbroken thread holding the entire endeavor together. Yet beneath the surface, the subtle signals of strain and anticipation mounted, a reminder that even the most perfect execution was vulnerable to the unpredictable pulse of the environment around them. The room beyond the vault was bathed in faint light, revealing stacks of chips, bundles of cash, and valuables meticulously arranged. The presence of these tangible proofs of risk and reward added a new dimension to the scene, a stark representation of the stakes involved. The team's skill had brought them here, but what lay ahead demanded equal parts caution and resolve. This fragile equilibrium between success and exposure was about to be tested in ways that no rehearsal could predict. The stillness could not last forever, and the moments ticking away held secrets yet to be unveiled. The narrative of the heist was far from over, unfolding with a complexity that mirrored the labyrinthine corridors they had just navigated. Feel free to share your thoughts on how the tension builds in these critical moments, and if you've noticed any subtle cues that hint at the challenges still to come. The faint, almost imperceptible cough broke the fragile silence like a needle slipping through a balloon. It wasn't loud, but within the sterile, high-tech environment of the casino's security room, even the smallest noise took on an ominous weight. The man responsible, a figure tense to the point of rigidity, had tried to suppress it, pressing a sleeve to his mouth, but the effort only made the sound more stifled, more urgent. The microphones embedded discreetly in the ceiling and walls, designed to capture the faintest whispers of irregularity, transmitted the noise in a distorted echo that bounced through the security operators' headsets. To the untrained ear, it might have sounded like a glitch or a stray mechanical hum, but to those watching the monitors, it was an anomaly demanding immediate attention. In the control room, a woman named Elena sat motionless, her gaze locked on a bank of screens flickering with grainy, night vision footage. The room was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the cold glow of digital displays. Elena's fingers hovered over the console as she processed the sound, the cough lingering like an unresolved chord in a symphony. She replayed the audio snippet, isolating the frequency, her brow furrowing as she recognized the significance of such a slip during a high-stakes intrusion. The system's advanced algorithms flagged the anomaly, prompting an alert that flared quietly on her screen. A protocol designed to detect environmental inconsistencies had been triggered. Meanwhile, in the labyrinth of corridors beneath the casino floor, the group of intruders exchanged subtle glances, unaware that their carefully crafted plan was unraveling with the suddenness of a loose thread. The man who had coughed was visibly shaken, glancing nervously at his companions. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his breathing shallow and rapid, betraying the calm facade he tried to maintain. The pressure of the moment, the weight of every second ticking by, manifested in that involuntary sound, a human flaw amidst cold precision. The layout they had memorized so meticulously now felt claustrophobic, the shadows cast by flickering emergency lights elongating their silhouettes, turning friends into specters. The sounds of their footsteps were muffled by layers of carpet and concrete, but the cough had slipped through the cracks of their silence, a ghostly reminder that no plan, no matter how foolproof, could erase the unpredictability of human nature. Back in the security room, Elena's voice was barely above a whisper as she communicated with the rest of the team. "We need to double-check the sensor arrays in Sector 5, she said, referring to the segment of the casino where the intruders were operating. The lead security officer, a man with years of experience named Marcus, nodded grimly. His eyes scanned the monitors, now zooming in on the precise area where the cough had been detected. The cameras, though limited in angle, began to pick up subtle movements, shadows flickering against walls, the faint glint of metal against fabric. The technology was not infallible, but it was enough to sow doubt, to encourage heightened vigilance. As the seconds stretched, the atmosphere grew thick with tension. The intruders, sensing a shift in the usual cadence of their operation, began to move with increased caution. One of them paused at a junction, fingers trembling slightly as he reached for a door handle. The sound of the cough seemed to echo in his mind, an unwelcome intrusion into the carefully maintained silence. The possibility that they had been detected, even if only suspected, altered their behavior in subtle but telling ways. The easy confidence of an orchestrated heist gave way to a more fragmented, hesitant rhythm. The environment itself seemed to conspire against them. The sterile walls, the humming of ventilation systems, and the distant murmur of slot machines from above created a backdrop that was both familiar and alien, where every sound was amplified in the stillness, where every movement risked exposure. The cough had introduced a variable into the equation, a ripple that threatened to cascade into chaos. In the control room, Elena and Marcus exchanged a glance heavy with unspoken understanding. The technology was their ally, but it was the human element, their instincts, their ability to read between the lines, that would determine the outcome. The faintest sound had become a thread to pull, a clue to follow in the dark maze of deception unfolding beneath the casino's glittering surface. Outside the monitored zones, the city's night continued indifferent, its own symphony of distant sirens, murmured conversations, and the occasional bark of a stray dog weaving into the urban fabric. Inside, however, the tension was palpable. A taut line stretched between detection and evasion. The cough, brief and unremarkable in another context, had transformed into a fulcrum upon which the fate of the entire operation might pivot. It was a moment suspended between action and consequence, where silence was no longer an ally but a fragile veneer. The narrative had shifted imperceptibly but decisively, and every participant in this unfolding drama was now caught in the web of sound, suspicion, and the relentless scrutiny of unseen eyes. What had begun as a simple misstep was evolving into something far more complex, an unseen signal that would reverberate through the corridors of power and secrecy alike. Feel free to share your thoughts on how such minute details can alter the course of events in high-pressure scenarios like this. The operator sat alone in the dimly lit control room, the steady hum of machines a constant backdrop to the flickering monitors arrayed before him. His eyes scanned the screens, but it was the headphones pressed lightly against his ears that held his rapt attention. At first, the sound was subtle, an indistinct murmur that could have been dismissed as interference or a stray echo from the ventilation system. Yet something about it didn't align with the predictable cadence of machinery or the usual creaks and groans of a building settling into the night. The operator's fingers hovered over the console, hesitating before he adjusted the audio feed, isolating the odd noise that had crept into the otherwise sterile soundscape. He rewound the recording, looping the segment repeatedly, each playback revealing a pattern that was almost imperceptible to the untrained ear. It wasn't random. It wasn't natural. The noise carried a rhythm, a staccato sequence that hinted at deliberate movement. The operator's training kicked in as he compared it against the known audio signatures stored in the system. None matched. No routine machine operation, no authorized personnel activity, no maintenance sounds. The sector where the noise originated was supposed to be locked down, void of any traffic at this hour. This anomaly was a breach, however subtle. Without hesitation, he initiated the internal protocol designed for irregular detections. The first step was to cross-reference motion sensors in the vicinity. The data showed no standard activity, no registered access points triggered. Yet the audio persisted, now clearer as the operator tweaked the filters, peeling away layers of ambient noise. It was a whisper of movement, a shuffled footstep, perhaps a faint metallic scrape against the floor, elements that should not exist in a sealed environment. The operator's gaze flicked to the timestamp. The incident had started several minutes earlier, enough time for an intruder to navigate the labyrinthine corridors of the casino's underbelly unnoticed. He tapped a command to activate a live feed from a nearby infrared camera, but the image was grainy, partially obstructed by pipes and conduits. Still, a shadow flickered across the frame, fleeting and indistinct, but enough to confirm his suspicions. The tension in the room thickened. The operator knew that this was no ordinary glitch or mechanical fault. It was a deliberate intrusion, a breach that had somehow slipped past layers of security measures designed to prevent exactly this kind of event. The casino's intricate network of sensors, cameras, and alarms was formidable, yet here was something or someone, moving in the shadows, exploiting a blind spot. He reached for the internal communication device, careful not to alert the intruder if they were indeed present. His voice was low but steady as he relayed the situation to his superior in security operations. The response was immediate. A protocol escalation, silent alarms triggered, and a team dispatched to investigate without delay. The operator's role, though isolated behind screens and headphones, had become a pivotal link in a chain of responses that could either contain the threat or allow it to spiral into catastrophe. As the minutes passed, the operator remained glued to the monitors, his focus sharpened by the growing sense of unease. The noise continued intermittently, a ghostly echo in a place that should have been utterly silent. Each fragment of sound carried weight, each flicker on the screen a potential clue. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as if the very walls were closing in around this unseen presence. Outside, the casino's usual vibrancy was muted under the cloak of night. Somewhere within its depths, the intruder moved with purpose, unaware that their slightest misstep was being dissected with clinical precision. The operator's detection was not just a technical success. It was a crack in the veil of security that could reveal far more than a simple trespasser. There was an unspoken urgency now, a sense that the unfolding events were part of a larger puzzle that extended beyond the immediate threat. The operator's next moves would determine how swiftly the net tightened around the shadow in the darkness. The silence between the noises grew heavier, pregnant with the promise of revelation or disaster. Right below, "I'm on this journey too." Minutes after the initial suspicion took hold, the casino's automated lockdown sequence sprang into action with mechanical precision. Doors sealed shut like tombs, corridors once bustling with life now reduced to narrow, claustrophobic tunnels. The faint hum of the air conditioning system was the only remaining soundtrack, punctuated occasionally by the distant clatter of hurried footsteps. Security teams were dispatched swiftly to predetermined checkpoints, their radios crackling with terse commands and updates. Meanwhile, the control room flickered with activity as technicians wrestled with systems rebooting in rapid succession, scanning for anomalies or traces of unauthorized access. The facility's reliance on sophisticated software infrastructure was both its strength and its Achilles heel, a digital fortress vulnerable to the subtle intrusion of a single overlooked vulnerability. Within the sterile confines of the command center, a low murmur of voices mixed with the sharp clatter of keyboards. Monitors displayed grids of data streams and camera feeds, each pixel scrutinized for signs of errant behavior. Yet, even amid this high-tech vigilance, a gnawing doubt began to take root. The flawless facade of control was starting to crack. Somewhere, buried in the labyrinth of code and circuitry, lay a discrepancy, an irregular heartbeat in the system's otherwise rhythmic pulse that no one had predicted. This was the point where the line between order and chaos blurred, revealing how a seemingly minor oversight could ripple outward like a shockwave, toppling the carefully constructed scaffolding of security. In the hallways, the tension was palpable. Employees and patrons alike found themselves corralled into tight spaces, their movements restricted by reinforced barriers and locked gates. Eyes flicked nervously between shadows, where the opaque glass of surveillance cameras caught reflections that didn't quite match the recorded reality. The air grew thick with uncertainty, a collective awareness settling over the crowd that something far more intricate was unfolding beneath the surface. The flickers of emergency lighting cast long, distorted silhouettes, turning familiar faces into ghostly apparitions. The building, designed to dazzle and distract, now felt like a cage, its labyrinthine architecture amplifying the psychological strain, turning every corner into a potential threat. Back in the command hub, the lead analyst's fingers hovered above the keyboard, hesitating for a moment before initiating a deeper forensic scan. Lines of code scrolled past, revealing fragments of encrypted data packets that suggested a breach had been cleverly masked. This was not the work of an amateur. The digital fingerprints pointed to a calculated intrusion, one that exploited a narrow window of exposure while the system was vulnerable during routine maintenance cycles. The subtlety of the attack lay in its invisibility, camouflaged within legitimate operations, making detection a matter of timing and intuition rather than brute force. Security personnel moved methodically through the sealed zones, their communication subdued but urgent. Each step was measured, their senses heightened by the knowledge that the threat was not just external but possibly embedded within the walls themselves. The psychological toll began to manifest. Whispers of paranoia threaded through radio chatter, as some officers questioned whether the intruder might still be among them, hidden behind familiar faces and standard-issue uniforms. Trust became a fragile commodity, eroding under the weight of suspicion and the relentless pressure to secure every inch of the environment. As the lockdown stretched on, the casino's usual symphony of chance and fortune was replaced by the cold mechanics of containment and investigation. The sprawling entertainment complex, once a beacon of glamour and excess, had transformed into a theater of shadows where every decision carried the weight of potential catastrophe. The balance between technology and human vigilance teetered precariously, underscored by the stark reality that perfection, no matter how meticulously engineered, is always vulnerable to the unforeseen. Amidst this controlled chaos, the operator's role grew increasingly crucial. The next series of choices would determine whether the breach could be isolated and neutralized or if the entire system would unravel, cascading into a broader crisis. The interplay between digital forensic analysis and on-the-ground security maneuvers created a tense choreography, each movement scrutinized and calibrated to outpace the unseen adversary's next move. Tension hung thick in the air, a reminder that in this urban labyrinth, the line between hunter and hunted was as thin and fragile as the flickering connection signals holding the lockdown in place. Feel free to share your thoughts or theories on what might have triggered the breach, or how the lockdown could unfold in the comments below. The moment the first flicker of instability rippled through the network, everything began to unravel with a speed that no one could have anticipated. The hacker's fingers danced frantically across the keyboard, eyes darting between lines of code that no longer responded as expected. The system, which had been their silent guardian and enabler, betrayed them in a way that felt almost personal. Alarms, previously silent, now blared faintly in the distance, a subtle but unmistakable warning. The control over the lockdown system was slipping through the hacker's grasp like sand through fingers. Each failed command a nail in the coffin of their plan. Meanwhile, the security guard embedded within the building tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but his composure cracked under the weight of suspicion. His movements, once calculated and smooth, now seemed erratic and forced, as if he were struggling to justify the unusual patterns he was forced to exhibit. His eyes flicked nervously toward every corridor, every shadow, as if expecting a silent accusation to leap out at him. The faintest noise, a distant footstep, a whispered exchange, set his nerves on edge. The tension was palpable, his breathing shallow, betraying the internal chaos that threatened to spill out in any moment. The specialist, who had been the linchpin of the operation, suddenly abandoned his carefully arranged toolkit. The polished instruments, once symbols of precision and control, lay scattered on the cold floor as he bolted toward an exit that had just begun to close in the distance. His focus shattered, the weight of the imminent collapse dragging him away from the meticulous work he had been so confident in. It was as though the air itself thickened, every step becoming heavier, every breath a battle against the rising tide of panic. At the edge of this crumbling order, the figure responsible for the feigned cough, a small yet pivotal element in their intricate design, succumbed to the rising tide of terror. The initial calm that masked his anxiety evaporated, replaced by a raw, visible panic that spread like a contagion. His cough, once a calculated distraction, became a tremor of genuine distress, a signal that the veneer of control had shattered irrevocably. Eyes wide and breath shallow, he moved erratically, a stark contrast to the quiet precision that had defined the early stages of the infiltration. Each individual's faltering action was a thread loosening in a fabric already frayed by stress and unforeseen complications. The carefully engineered synchronization dissolved into a chaotic scramble as the team found themselves hemmed in, the labyrinthine corridors offering no refuge. The walls seemed to close in, the exit points shrinking under the pressure of pursuing forces. The subtle mistake, a miscalculation so minute it might have gone unnoticed in any other scenario, triggered a cascade of failures. Like dominoes falling in rapid succession, every element of the plan collapsed, exposing them to the relentless tightening grip of containment. The once invisible boundary between control and chaos was breached, and with it, the illusion of safety. The team's coordinated rhythm splintered into dissonance, each member reacting not as a unit but as isolated fragments driven by instinct rather than strategy. The building's cold lights flickered overhead, casting elongated shadows that seemed to mock their desperation. The soundscape shifted from the muffled hum of precision to the sharp clatter of discarded tools, hurried footsteps, and the distant echo of commands barking through communication channels now compromised. In the midst of this turmoil, the environment itself appeared to conspire against them. Surveillance cameras, once bypassed with ease, pivoted and tracked their every movement. Motion sensors, long dormant, snapped awake like predators sensing prey. The corridors, once silent arteries of their plan, became traps lined with uncertainty and threat. Each step forward was met with the creeping certainty that escape was no longer a question of skill but of chance. The the psychological strain mounted alongside the physical barriers. The team's mental armor, forged through preparation and rehearsals, fractured under the relentless pressure. Doubt crept into their minds, erasing the clarity that had once guided their actions. Decisions that should have been instinctive were now hesitant, weighed down by the awareness of failure looming just beyond reach. The tension, once a shared burden, now isolated each member in their own spiral of anxiety. As the perimeter tightened, voices grew louder, harsh whispers over static-filled radios, hurried exchanges beneath the echoing hum of ventilation shafts. The chase was no longer a calculated maneuver but a desperate bid to reclaim control from the encroaching chaos. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, a flicker of something unspoken held them together, a raw, unguarded will to survive the collapse of their carefully laid plans. Right below, "I'm on this journey too." Looking back, it's striking how something so meticulously planned, crafted with engineering precision and months of preparation, unraveled because of something as fleeting as a reflex. The human element, the unpredictable twitch, the momentary hesitation, proved to be the weak link in an otherwise flawless chain. It's a reminder that no matter how advanced or foolproof a plan seems, there's always that one small, uncontrollable factor that can tip the balance entirely. That subtle, almost invisible crack in the armor is what makes these stories so compelling. It's not just about the mechanics or the strategy, but about the people behind them, their instincts, their flaws, their split-second decisions. And maybe that's why these near-perfect crimes fascinate us. They show how even the most careful minds can be undone by something as simple as a glance or a breath. If you're drawn to stories like this, where the tension builds until the last second and everything hinges on the tiniest detail, I think you'll find plenty to keep you intrigued here. There's a whole world of narratives where human nature meets high stakes, and the results are anything but predictable. So, if you want to stick around and explore more of these moments when precision meets unpredictability, consider subscribing to the channel. It's a way to make sure you don't miss the next story that dives deep into the delicate balance between genius and error. And hey, if you made it all the way to the end of this one, drop a comment below with, "I'm on this journey too." It's a little way for me to know you were here, following along, caught up in the same mix of suspense and curiosity. Plus, if you found yourself connecting with the story, a like on the video would mean a lot. It's like a shared nod between us, acknowledging the time and attention you've given. Before you go, there's a video right here on the side that ties into this story and explores another angle you might find fascinating. Click over and keep the momentum going with me over there. It's a smooth way to dive a little deeper without losing the thread we've been following. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to having you along for the next chapter.